it's Aaron. I'm back hosting GCS Connect Inclusion. I missed you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we're going to be talking about pronouns. This is something that I'm hugely interested in, and I'm not going to pretend one way or the other, but I've not understood it until actually getting involved and talking to our guest speaker today. So let's bring Lou in. Lou, hello.
Hey, Aaron.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. I don't know whether you heard my intro there, but I was just saying that I've not really had much understanding until meeting you with regards to the importance of pronouns. So I'm really excited for you to give us that education and talk us through the importance of pronouns. But can you just give the audience an introduction about who you are?
Yeah. So I'm Lou. My pronouns are they, them. I work at Proactive Recruitment and I'm a managing consultant there in the Manchester office. So I also head up the EDI committee for them, which is something that we've just started this year. And I recently actually ran an internal pronouns training session, which seemed to go down really well and is going to now be kind of put out to the wider group. So yeah, it's all really exciting.
That is phenomenal. And I'm really excited to be learning about that because I think it's like most things in life. You do not understand the importance of something like this unless you experience it for yourself. So can you just give us a bit of an intro about your personal experience around the whole pronouns and why you've gone down this route of going they, them? Is that all right to do?
Yeah, of course. So
thank you.
Look, I mean, I'll obviously try and keep this short, or, put it into kind of a compressed kind of amount of time. But, essentially growing up, I always wanted to be a boy, as I would refer to it. So, I used to want to have like the 90s style curtains haircut. I played a lot of tennis at quite a high level and I would refuse to kind of wear the tennis skirts. My mum was really supportive. She didn't bat an eyelid when I asked for the Andre Agassi full tennis kit. She bought it me, and on the tennis court I went. So it was never really addressed as it being an issue or anything else. But I just felt internally different. So fast forward to many years later, I came out as lesbian when I was about 20. So at that time, it was a bit of like, aha, maybe I'm a lesbian. This is why I feel different. But internally, I didn't feel better for that. Something still didn't feel right for me. And I just didn't know what it was. At that time, you were pretty much either male or female. I knew nothing else. And so I felt internally very, very torn because I didn't feel like I wanted to go on testosterone and do a transition. But I also did not feel female in the slightest. So, through that time, through my 20s and my 30s, I actually really struggled with drugs and alcohol. It was a real problem. I've actually just kind of celebrated 3 years clean and sober, which was, I think, part of my journey. I used all of that really, I think, to mask who I was, and not have to deal with it, So it was almost more confusing, I think, for me, not thinking, I'm trans. I'm a trans man. I want to transition because I didn't want to have my breasts. So I was very, I was not connected to them at all. On the other hand, I didn't want to then go on testosterone, grow a beard and everything else. So it was a really confusing time for me. I met my now wife about 3 years ago. And, she is really big in the queer community. She worked for the LGBT Foundation. She knew a lot of, non-binary people, trans people, whereas I didn't know anyone. There was no representation of anyone who was non-binary on the TV, and that's kind of it's a lot of what you relate to as you're growing up, the people around you and what you see. And I didn't see anyone like me, so I had no one to relate to. And, through talking to her, she actually said you don't have to be one or the other. You can sit in the middle, which it's non-binary, it's genderqueer. And it was a real light bulb moment for me. I was like, well, what is this? What is this magic you speak of? And she essentially said, well, this is it. You don't have to go one way or the other. You can sit in the middle. You can be non-binary. You can use they, them pronouns. You can be gender neutral. And it just felt like an amazing moment for me to go, oh my God, like that is what I am. Because I'm not, there are some parts of my female side that I like. I would say that I definitely probably sway more on the more masculine energy in terms of my clothes and things like that. But, I have the long hair, I wear a bit of makeup, etc. And so it was just, it was a really, really cool moment to go, right, it's finally nice to be able to just put to know kind of what I am and have a label for it as such, because the world does seem to be obsessed with labels. And
they do, agreed.
It's sad, really, but it almost makes you feel inclusive when you know what you are, for example, So,
and I think that's half the battle with lots of people, regardless whether you are he, him, her, them, whatever. Half the battle, 9 times out of 10 in life, is understanding who we truly are as individuals. So I've got so many questions for you just around about your life, because this is just fascinating. And as a gay guy myself, I can understand that whole battle with regards to understanding that I'm potentially different to everybody else in the dressing room, in the sports room. Okay, I totally and utterly get that, and I think that there is a huge pressure on anybody that feels the need to come out. I hate that whole term because heterosexuals do not have to announce that they like sleeping with the opposite sex. So I really don't. I really don't like that part of my life, if I'm completely honest with you. But so. When you were 20, you came out as lesbian. That must have been a battle in its own right, because I can really and utterly join partnership with you on that. I share that same thought process. I didn't come out till I was in my early 30s, even though I always knew that I was gay. But you then had another element about you as an individual, for the fact that you didn't still feel fulfilled. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. And in fact, the whole process has now begun again, because I've kind of re-come out. Lesbian isn't a term that I really align with at all.
No.
I call myself a queer person. I'm in a queer relationship. And so, I've started the coming out process all over again. It was only really quite recently, actually. So this is all quite new in terms of talking about it and being proud about it. I was on a call with my managing director, Georgia. We were talking about the EDI committee. We were talking about some things that we wanted to go over. She mentioned that she'd recently, kind of had some involvement around pronouns, but it wasn't something she understood. And she went away and educated herself. And I just turned around and said, well, actually, my pronouns are they, them. And she was like, oh my God, like, I never knew, why don't we know this? And I said, well, it just wasn't really something I necessarily felt comfortable talking about. And she was like, well, why not? And I said, well, it's just like the whole coming out process again. It's having to put yourself out there, make yourself vulnerable, and talk about things that people don't always get. And when people don't understand it, they sometimes can be cruel, right?
Yes.
I was really pleased that I did, because she was super supportive. She was really excited for me to, back me in terms of putting this out to the company, making it, educating our colleagues. I did a pronouns training session. My pronouns are now on my email, which feels great. She also led from the top and put hers on her email signature. And that just shows that she's a real ally to me. She changed my email from Louise to Lou, which was great, because I really hate being referred to as Louise. Lou is gender neutral name. It was a really great moment. But again, it's that whole process of coming out all over again. I took it upon myself to engage with a therapist who's been phenomenal. And she really has, taken me to a place where I've learned to kind of accept myself more, love this part of me, and be proud of it. Because I think essentially I had a lot of shame around it, and I just kind of wanted to hide it away, and I masked it with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely. And this might be too much of a personal question, so feel free to tell me to mind my own business. Did you ever have suicidal thoughts around you as an individual?
No, I didn't, but my mental health massively suffered. So I wouldn't say it got to that point. But when you're drinking a lot of alcohol and you're taking a lot of drugs, your mental health is never going to be in a good place anyway.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
I absolutely hit rock bottom. I was living in Australia at the time. I'd been there for 10 years. I called up my mum, who has always been my biggest cheerleader and
That's amazing.
huge advocate of me. I told her previously when she came out to see me that I thought I was trans and I was having some real issues with it, and she was very supportive. And I just said to her, look, I'm an addict, I'm struggling, I need to come home. And it was only really coming home and getting sober that allowed me to actually look deeper within myself and kind of, find out who I am. So, mental health has definitely been an issue throughout it.
And I think that this is something and if I can use the phrase, normal individuals don't always get, because you fit into society, whereas people like you and I haven't always fit into society. I tried to take my life 3 times in my teens and my 20s because I just couldn't cope with it. I grew up in quite a Victorian sort of like household, and everybody, all the alpha males of that family were very anti-gay, and there was a lot of comments I still remember in my head growing up that I was surrounded by. So I love the fact that you had.
To hear that as well, by the way. So I'm
sorry. I strongly believe that we all go on journeys for reasons, and I've learned that, and that's why I've been able to be the person that I am today. But thank you for that. Can you just give me, because I'm trying to understand and get that education around, because as I said, I don't register myself as gay because I'm just me. I'm an individual. But what does it actually mean by they and them? What has that changed to you as an individual for the fact that, and again, if I'm saying this wrongly, please forgive me, but you float between the two of not being able to be, labeling yourself as male or female. So what does it mean to you as an individual?
I mean, I kind of think as myself now as pretty unique and special, and I embrace that part of me. So, through the work, I am loving to love it. I think essentially it's saying that, you're not on the binary, you're not a male or a female, you fall somewhere along there. Now, there are some people who will use she, they, which means that they are happy with both their kind of feminine side as well as their more gender neutral side.
Interesting.
My pronouns, in fact, just to quickly highlight, it's actually International Pronoun Day today. So it's just a really nice coincidence, that we're doing this on today. So, for example, I go to Sainsbury's this morning, I'm at the chemist picking up a prescription, and, the lady behind the counter is like, oh, can you help that lady over there? People always label you, not just me, everybody, we're all guilty of doing it. Whereas actually, if we all started to use more gender neutral language, then it would be, a much more pleasant place for the minority of people. And it's about being inclusive. I read something today as well, and this was new to me, is that, you shouldn't ask people what their preferred pronouns are, because that insinuates that, they kind of just choose their gender and everything like that. I think it also says if I say my preferred pronouns are they, them, it also then still gives that person the opportunity to use she, because I'm just saying it's my preferred. Well, no, my pronouns are they, them. I don't mind if you get them wrong. Absolutely not. And if, often people do, and it's just about a matter of correcting them. I think from a grammatical point of view, some people struggle with they, them because it's also plural.
Yes.
So my sister is one of them. I'd had surgery a few months back. She went to text my wife and ask her how I was doing. And she was like, how are them? She just couldn't quite get her head around it. And I always say, if in doubt, use the person's name.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely bang on there. So with regards to, you mentioned about going to the chemist this morning, etc. So, on a lot of documentation, it says, for me, Mr. Aaron Mark Keep. How were you labelled on sort of like your driving license and prescriptions? How does that come about, and how do you go about getting that changed?
It's really disappointing, actually, because currently there is nothing there.
Okay.
So I got married a month ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. The registrar was pretty cool in the sense that he used Lou when he could, but he had to use Louise for the formal parts. I think the most disappointing part was that he had to refer to me as a wife. You know, we couldn't even use spouse or partner or something just more gender neutral. You know, it was just in a box. So there's a lot of change that needs to happen. When it comes to titles, my title is MX, so that is gender neutral for me. But there's not many places that do it. So if you ever kind of go on a drop down and you're filling it in and you see MX, then it's amazing, because you know they're kind of getting with the times and they're including everybody. So currently I am down as MS on driving license, passports and things like that. But I hope that will change in the future.
Yeah, interesting. And one of my pet hates is any form of survey. It always asks you, and you know, I think people are saying they do it because they want to be inclusive. Well, I actually think it's the other way around. But on a lot of forums, it asks you to fill in about your sexuality or, you know, things like that. How does that make you feel as somebody that is non-binary, or they, them? How does that happen?
If they have the option of non-binary, it makes me happy, because it shows that they're being inclusive. And that is all this is about, you know. I mean, when I do my pronouns training, you know, I say it doesn't really cost anybody anything to use the correct pronouns, but for the person who they're referring to, it means an awful lot, you know. And it is just about change, and it is about being inclusive. And until we start including people, then it's not an inclusive world to live in. You know, you're always sat on the outskirts, you're always on the edge, you're always considered, you know, well, for many years I felt very like a bit of a freak, you know. That's one of the words that would come to mind. So yeah, I think it's about focusing on that inclusivity.
And both you and I do a lot of work in our businesses about DE&I, etc. What can companies do to help people in your situation 10, 15 years ago?
I mean, gosh, even today, I think there's still a lot of work to be done, right? So it could be, you know, it could be simple things like when you are going into a meeting, introduce yourself and then say what your pronouns are. So it then gives the people who, so if somebody, for example, is cisgendered, and that means that they align with the body that they were born into at birth, right? If they go in and they say, you know, my name is this and I'm she, her, and that's what they align with, it then gives that person who might be non-binary the confidence to kind of join in and actually say, well, I'm they, them. But it's all about leading from the top as well. So I think that a lot of education needs to go into it. I mean, for example, George has been fantastic. She is our MD. She puts her pronouns on her email. She wants me to put the training out to the wider group, you know, and it is about leading by example and educating people. There's some real simple things like, you know, when you're doing meetings, rather than saying, you know, hi ladies and gents, it's, you know, hi folks, hi everybody. And again, just being gender neutral on your language around the office. It's about fostering a culture of respect. So even
that's a big thing. It's about understanding respect, and it is very disrespectful to not address somebody in the term that they feel comfortable with.
Yeah, of course. And you know, we have taken a stance that we are not asking people to, we're not telling people they have to put their pronouns on their emails. What we have said is, you know, here is the training, here is the education, you know, if you do this, then it shows that you are an ally. And I think that's what it's really about as well, being an ally to your colleagues. And this goes for any minority. You know, you've got things like the maternity and paternity leave. You know, why can it not be called parental leave, for example? You know, there's small things like that. Having the option for having MX on your payslip, you know, and things like that. So I think there's definitely, you know, there's definitely a lot of things that companies can do. Gender neutral toilets, for example, which I know has been quite a bit of a hot topic in the Daily Mail for a few years. But you know, there's a multitude of things that can and need to happen.
And if you could rewind the clock back 10, 15 years to younger Lou, what bit of advice would you give yourself?
Just be a little bit kinder to myself, I think. it's funny because my wife and I have just recently rewatched Queer as Folk. I don't know if you've seen they've remade it.
Oh, I've not seen the remake. I saw
Yeah.
the one back in, I think, the late 80s, 90s.
Yeah,
My
so
age now.
you kind of, you think back to the original one and you kind of a bit like, it's really kind of inappropriate at times. And in the new one, they have all these non-binary characters and, intersectionality and things like that. And I think, just in terms of going back to your question and looking at myself, it's just about being kinder to myself and, accepting myself. But it's a really hard thing to do no matter what your age, but especially when you are a younger person. I almost feel a bit envious about the kids kind of growing up now who are in their teens. Yeah. And, I have kind of nieces and nephews and so on. And they're all quite aware of it. There may be people in their class who already identify as non-binary. And I think, I wish I'd had that kind of option. But, I've made it. I'm 42. I'm here now. I'm getting to a place where I'm really comfortable and love myself a lot more than what I did. And it's a good place to be. So I think it's about looking forward and making sure the next 10, 15 years just keep getting, easier and more inclusive for our younger generation that are coming through.
Yeah, I agree. If we can just make one person's life even better and allow them to smile earlier, which I wasn't able to do, then I think that's a significant uplift on where we are today as individuals. Lou, I could literally talk to you for hours about this and about your experiences, etc. We're obviously limited on time today, but I'd love to, maybe do a revisit at some point with you if you're up for that, and explore a little bit more detail on some of the experiences, because I think we've literally just touched the tip of the iceberg here. But, if somebody is struggling, if there's different tips and hints that you can give people that are creating this change in their business, are you quite happy for them to reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm pretty vocal about my sobriety. I'm now becoming very vocal about my gender identity. To me, if it helps anybody along the way, me speaking out, then, I've achieved what I want to achieve. And my door is always open.
Lou, thank you so much. And, thank you for helping to educate me, because we've talked on and off for a few days, etc., by the planning of this. And again, it's just about education. So thank you for being you. You're great. I've loved the conversation. Really been looking forward to this one. And I can't wait for us to catch up again. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Aaron. It's been great.
Take care. Cheers.
Take care. Bye.